Welcome to the Adoption Journey podcast. I am your host, Tarsha Smith, and thank you for joining us on yet another episode. I am very excited to have in the building today a fellow adoptee, lost child. Hello, sir.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for
And
having me. Thank you for doing what you do.
thank you so much. I appreciate that. And I want to just dive right in. Let the people know who you are first and foremost.
Um, I am more or less known, more so known as Poet Lost Child. Hold
And
on.
are you into poetry? Is that where we get the poet lost child?
Yes. Um,
Spoken word?
yes. That's something that I got into about 15 years ago.
Okay. And you're still on the in the circuit?
Yeah, that's what I do.
That's what you do?
That's my life. Yes.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I'm gonna have to connect you with one of my childhood friends. Shout out to Big Homie. So
Big
let's
homie.
dive into yeah. Yeah, oh, you
Let's
know
go.
that name?
The name sounds
DC.
familiar. Where is it? I
He's in
think I might
DC.
know. I know Big Homie already. Yes, we already
Oh,
connected.
childhood friend. We
Mm-hmm.
grew up
Mm-hmm.
together.
Small world.
Small world. That's so dope.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's dive into your story. You are an adoptee.
Yes.
Um, I want.
I guess I'm still learning the proper descriptions. The uh,
Okay,
same race adoptee.
okay.
Um, I know some people got it laid out how they have their whole introduction and they hit all those points. Same race, closed
Listen,
adoption.
you don't have to
Uh,
do that. So I hear you. So same race adoptee. Do
yes.
you know how old you were when you found out? Oh, excuse me. How old you were when you were adopted? That's what I'm trying to say.
There's a little bit of back and forth between it. Um,
Okay, let's dive
I
in.
was initially I was told like right from the hospital, a couple days old.
Okay.
Um, but then in 2017, when I actually got my adoption papers, my original birth certificate, the paperwork said I was roughly 3 weeks old when I was given to my loving adoptive family.
Okay.
So I believe it was 3 weeks because I've since found, I've gone back now and researching like the baby book. Like I had a baby book, like most babies had a baby book of the first steps and the first words and all of those types of things. And just last
Okay.
year, I found my baby book that I had seen before, but I wasn't looking for details before. And the very
Mm.
first page says, "We brought you home on this day, April, what was it? April 23rd. I was born on March
Okay.
30th. So if y'all brought me home on April 23rd, I was born on March 30th. Why you keep telling me you brought me straight home from the hospital at 2 or 3 days old?"
Mm.
So
Well, is there a huge difference
no,
between?
it does no. That's what I'm saying. And one of the things that I've said, it doesn't matter. But I didn't
Okay.
really start asking questions to my about adoption until, like I said, these last 4 or 5 years. And the
Mm.
questions that I had, well, the answers that I got to the questions didn't match up with the information that I've actually been finding out over these last few years. So it's
So
like,
did you kind of grow up with the word adoption just being normal?
no, I didn't know at all
Oh,
until
they
I was,
didn't tell
no,
you.
no,
Okay. So you
um,
grew up not knowing.
no, not at all. I
How
was
did you find out?
12 years old, and I think the mother and one of the other family members got into some sort of an argument because they must have mentioned it somehow, and they got into a full fight. I've heard the story over the years. So I guess at that point, she felt like she needed to say something before somebody else said something around me. So
So you were 12, you
yes,
said? And it was not her intent to tell you.
more than likely not. I guess she just figured in that moment she better say something before somebody else did. I guess because I've asked since then, and I don't really get clear answers at this point, so I'm still just piecing it together on my own based off of things that I remember and things that I've seen and the
Mm-hmm.
information that I'm getting now. But I do remember I was about 12 years old when she came. When I remember the event happening. Um, I remember hearing family members talk about your mom and such had a fight. I remember hearing about the story. And it was
Yeah.
that night of the fight that she came home and told me. So I just put two and two together, realized that's what the fight was about. I guess she figured since somebody else was talking about it, she figured it might happen again with me being in the room, maybe. So maybe she should say something before I just accidentally overhear somewhere else.
When she told you, was she upset? Do you remember that conversation?
Yeah. Um, it was a real, oh yeah, by the way type conversation. Uh, we just want to tell you, we're not your real parents. We adopted you when you were a baby. Yada yada yada. Woo woo woo. I don't remember verbatim beyond that because
Yeah,
I
yeah,
just
yeah.
fell out crying. I remember just being laying out on the floor crying, and I just laid there.
Oh,
I laid there until eventually she was like, "All right, that's enough." And when she said
do
that's
you
enough,
re- do you remember why you cried? Like, well, how did you feel? Do you remember that?
because I never had, like, I listened to some of the other stories of some of the other adoptees, and like they say they always felt different, they always looked different, they always had an idea that something was wrong or something was strange. I didn't. So
Mm.
it was just like, okay, so if y'all not my mom and my dad, then who is? Like, so what is? Like, nothing. My head was just spinning in so many different directions at that point.
So, do you think if they had told you earlier in life, that would have made a difference?
Yes, absolutely. Because I understood what adoption was because my neighbor had foster kids. So she
Okay.
fostered a lot of kids, and then I knew for sure at that point in time, I think she had permanently adopted two. So there were
Okay.
two that were permanent stays, I guess, at her house. But then there were others that
Yeah.
had come and gone over the years, and they were my neighbors. They were like my best friends. We all played together. So I knew the concept of foster and adoption. I just never knew I was a part of that.
That you that you were in that community, right?
Right.
So, so you learned this at 12. Do you start asking questions at this point, or does that happen a little later on?
It was a one and done conversation. Like, we told you what we told you. I know, like I said, that night I just stretched out on the floor crying, and she was just like, "All right, that's enough." And when she said that's enough, like, there was no asking questions. There was no, I said what I said. You heard what I said. That's the end of it. So I remember getting up from there, and I
Mm-hmm.
just got into bed, and I went to sleep. And I remember waking up the next morning. That was a Friday night. I woke up the next morning on a Saturday, and they were in the kitchen like any other Saturday morning. She was cooking breakfast, and my dad was sitting at the table. And when I walked in, I was still crying. Like I said, I cried myself to sleep. I woke up crying. And when I walked in the room, she was like, "Nah, you're not gonna walk around here like something wrong with you. Fix your face and act right." And that was the last
Mm.
conversation we had about it as from 12 years old. And then I didn't bring it back up until I was probably somewhere in my 30s.
Oh, wow. Okay, so you carried this for a long time. Did you just kind of tuck it away?
Act like it didn't happen. Well, she told me, fix your face and act right. And that's what I did.
Do you feel like, in hindsight, do you feel like it affected relationships moving forward? How you dealt
Absolutely.
with relationships?
Absolutely. At some point, I want to say about 34. I had moved to a
Mhm.
different part of Jersey and I started doing stage plays. I just kind of fell into it by accident. I've never been a stage play person, never been an actor. And people kept asking me, like, "Yo, man, you real good at this. Like, how, like, you studied acting or you studied screenwriting or whatever?" I'm like, "Nah, I've never." But in hindsight, I'm like, "Yo, I've been acting since I was 12."
You've been pretending all your life.
Yeah,
Wow. Okay. I'm blown away by that because did you recognize in the moment, like let's say when you get, I'm gonna say, let's say late teens, early 20, you have these relationships. Did you realize in the moment that maybe I respond the way that I do or feel the way that I do because of what's tucked away.
No.
Is that something that was always kind of like in the back of your mind, or you had really just kind of suppressed it and
Out of sight,
let it
out
go?
of mind. I didn't talk about it.
You never ran across any other adoptees in that span?
Um, I want to say I was probably in my mid 20s. I met this dude. He was a Korean adoptee.
Okay.
And I remember he and I, we worked together. We were working retail in the stock room. And I don't even know how it came up in conversation. Well, he was Asian and he grew up in a predominantly white neighborhood. And I don't know how it came up in conversation. He was like, nah, I'm adopted. I'm a Korean adoptee, yada, yada, yada. And he was like, Korea was a whole, like, I've since learned about the Korean, like the CAD groups, the KAD. That's the first actual group that I found on social media.
Mm-hmm.
And they have reunions every, like, once a year. They have things where they all get together. And but he was one that I met prior to me opening up to this, and he was just like, I don't care nothing about Korean. I don't speak the language. I don't know anything about the culture. My mom and dad, they got me from Korea when I was a baby. That's my mom and dad. That's all I know. That's all I want to know. I'm not looking for anything else. I know I'm adopted because obviously I look Korean, I look Asian, excuse me, and everyone around him looks white. So
Right.
he always knew, but he was just like, nah, I love my mom and dad. They give me the best life possible. I'm not looking for anything. I don't want to know anything. And I was just like, wow, that's dope. I want to know though. He was like, nah, I don't care. And we just kind of
Yeah.
had that, and it was just kind of like a conversation we had, and then we just went on about our lives, just working together. But it wasn't
It's
like a
working,
continual thing.
right? Because there's two sides to that. Because I can attest to that. I'm that person who I had a wonderful life, but I still want to know.
Right.
So I get that. So how did we move from being suppressed to starting asking questions? What was the moment?
Um, I want to say up until 2017, I had given up on um, not wanting to know, but I didn't think that there would ever be. No one in the family was talking about it, or it seemed like they were willing to talk about it. And at the time, I had, from other reasons, I had unplugged from. This was before social media. I had stopped watching TV pretty much altogether. So I hadn't seen. I know there's a show that I hear a lot of adoptees talk about that used to come on some years ago, about somebody reuniting families or something. I don't know which station it was on, but I've heard a bunch of adoptees talk about it.
Okay.
So I didn't know that there were resources or people like me that were out there searching and reuniting and all that kind of stuff. So I just wrapped my mind around the fact that I was never going to know anything. There was never anything to find out. Just, it is what it is. Can't cry over spilled milk. Just go ahead and live your life. And
And when you say no one was talking about it, you mean your adoptive family,
right,
like
right,
everybody, including your parents. Do
right.
you have siblings?
No, it was just me.
Okay, you're the only child. Okay, so when do you discover you're not by yourself?
Somewhere in 2017, I think it was an article somehow I ran across that New Jersey was changing the adoption laws to where closed adoptees from closed adoptions could have access to their original records. I never knew there were original records. I thought the birth certificate that I had was the only birth certificate, and it had that after adoption information. I didn't know there was another set of paperwork from beforehand or whatever. So
Yeah.
when I found out the article, it was like October or November of 2016. So I had to wait, like I was on pins and needles, just waiting for the end of December. On January 3rd, like the first day that everything opened back up after the new year, I was at the Hall of Records and I got my original birth certificate. And it didn't
Now, how
have,
detailed was it? That yeah, go ahead. That's what I want to ask.
yeah. It didn't have a name. It was just baby boy. There was a name for my birth mother. There was an address on that, and that was basically it. Everything else was it was just unknown, or like there was for the father, it was unknown or whatever. There was no time on there, so I still didn't know what time I was born, which is things that I've always wanted to know. I heard people talk about, yeah, I was born 11 o'clock in the morning, and it was just like those are the conversations I was always involved in, and I didn't jump in like, yeah, I don't know because I was adopted. I just stayed quiet in conversations like that because it's just stuff I never knew. But once I got the birth certificate, I don't remember the process exactly, but somehow I found the agency that handled the adoption. So I reached out to them. I told them who I was and what I was looking for, and I think they charged me like $150 for my non-identifying information. So 2017, I got the birth certificate, the non-identifying information, and then I sat on that until 2020 because I still didn't know that there was a whole network and community of us that I could bounce the stuff off of. So I was just sitting there by myself. I didn't tell
Okay.
anybody. I didn't show anybody.
Hold on, I want to ask a question. So
Yes.
your parents never gave you anything?
No.
No paperwork,
No.
no nothing.
One and done conversation. That was it.
Wow. Okay.
So once I got that information in 2017, the agency told me they were going to charge me like a ridiculous amount of money if I wanted them to continue the search for me. And it was just money that I didn't have at the time. So I stopped. That was a brick wall that I ran into at 2017, and I just sat on that information. And it wasn't until 2020 when COVID happened and the world shut down and nothing was moving. A friend of mine sent me an adoptees page on Instagram,
Mm-hmm.
and that was the first adoptee that I met at the Black Adoptee on Instagram. My homegirl Coco, she was the first
Love
adoptee that I
her.
ever connected with on social media, and like I think I scrolled through her whole page and was just liking, and it dawned on me. I'm like, yo, her notifications are gonna look insane because it's just me. Forward launch shot, forward launch shot, forward launch shot. So I instantly went right to her inbox and I'm like, I'm so sorry. I don't want to seem like I'm a creep or a weirdo. It's just you're the first adoptee that I've ever what yada yada yada. And then from
Yeah, yeah,
there
yeah.
she was like, nah, it's cool. And like I said, we cool to this day. But and then from there, like I said, talking to her and other adoptees, I realized there's outlets to reach out to and different things to get into. So yeah, that was the beginning for me, 2020.
So when you got your birth certificate, your original birth certificate, you said your birth mom's name was on there.
Yes.
Was it first and last name?
It's the first and last name, but I haven't been able to find anything off of that name. And she was from Jamaica, and I've since found um, I've talked to some people from Jamaica, and they were telling me like back in the 70s when people couldn't legitimately afford to come to America, they would buy
Mm-hmm.
visas, like under the table type deal, like black market visas or whatever. And
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes when they bought that visa, the visa came with a name already. So they just became that person. So that's the name that they used once they came to America. So that may be why I haven't found anything under that name if that was her situation, because that name has led me to nothing.
Oh, you just told me something. I didn't know that.
Mm, yeah.
Oh,
But
okay.
shit, I didn't know until last year. Like I said, I did the DNA stuff, and I ended up connecting with some people through DNA,
That was
and
my
I had
next question. Have you
yes,
done
yes.
the
But it was all
DNA?
22. It was all in 2020.
And what did you discover with the DNA test?
Um, I did I did two different ones. The first one I did right there, everything was like third and fourth generation, and I'm like, all right, I didn't really know what to do with that information. And then somebody was telling me to try this other site because they were older, they had a bigger database. So I tried that one,
Mhm.
and I ended up finding it was a first generation cousin or whatever, and I ended up finding my biological father through that information. But he had passed already in 2004. But at least I found out who he was.
Okay. Were you able to
Um,
find, like, did he have siblings or?
Yes, I've talked to he passed away, but I've it was kind of like ill how it happened. Like I found this information and now I gotta get my years together. This is 2023. That was 2022. It was the beginning of 2022 when I found it, February, I believe, of
Okay.
last year. Gotta get my dates right now. It's a whole lot
That's
of
okay.
dates mashed together.
Yeah.
Um, I found out in February who he was, and I reached out to some of his immediate family members, and I found some of his cousins that he grew up with, and they notified me that they were having their family reunion in Indianapolis that summer, which like 2 or 3 months away. So
Right.
I got myself together and I went to the family reunion. So I met his whole side of the family at the family reunion last year, last
Oh, that's
August.
amazing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So that
So,
that turned out real dope.
okay. So my first question: are your adoptive parents? So, how did they respond to you finding?
They could care
No.
less. the dad, he passed away 2021, I think. 2021, 22. I
And
think he
you
passed
mean
away
your
before I
adoptive
found out.
dad?
Yeah,
Okay.
he passed away right before I found out. And then, like I mentioned it to the mother, and it's a conversation she just don't want to have. So, all right, cool.
I think that's, I hear your verbiage. You're saying the mother.
She's not
Have
my
you,
mother.
have
She's
you
never been
gone,
a mother to me.
have you
I was a
gone,
placeholder. I was just there because she couldn't have, so she wanted that outside image to make it look like they had a complete family, but she's never treated me like a son. I was just there to. I was a pet. That's the only way I can explain it. I was a pet.
did you feel like that growing up?
In hindsight, like I would just tell them. I tell the story like my sixth grade graduation when I graduated elementary school. If there
Yeah.
was a valedictorian for sixth grade, I would have been it. Everything that they called up, every math, they called my name for award. English, they called my name for award. Choir, they called my name for award. The band, they called my name for award. The AV team, they called my name for award. Gym, they called my name for an award. It was to the point that at that age, I could hear people in the audience sucking their teeth every time they called my name again. And at the end of the day, I walked home in my cap and gown with my certificates under my arm. So then I didn't think anything was weird, but in hindsight, I'm like, that was wrong. Something was
Wait,
wrong with that picture.
so there was an end of the year award ceremony and they did not attend.
It was the graduation. They came. They were there, but at the end of the ceremony, they got chips and cookies, and you get to say bye to your friends for the summer and bye to your teachers because you're moving to a new school, so you're not going to see them anymore. They
Right.
said, we don't feel like waiting. So if you want to stay, you got to walk home. So they left. Something was more important for them to go to. And they went somewhere else. And I stayed and had chips and cookies and talked to my friends and my teachers. And then I walked home in my cap and gown at the end of the ceremony. So at the
And at the
time, I didn't
time,
realize how wrong it was. But in hindsight, as
that
an adult,
moment,
as a parent now, I'm like, something was real wrong.
oh gosh. Okay. So have you gone no contact with her at this point?
So once I was out of the house at like 18, I said we don't do birthdays, we don't do holidays and anniversaries, and I've since as an adult in my 20s and 30s, I've tried to just like go back and like, okay, we're grown now, we could talk about this, we could put everything out on the table, and the conversations didn't go very well. The first time I tried, I think I was like 20, about 28, 29, and
Yeah.
I don't remember how the conversation started, but I know it ended with me slamming furniture and kicking stuff over as I left the house. I tried again in my 30s, and it pretty much went the same way. And then just last year, I tried again. I didn't slam nothing. I didn't cuss. I didn't whatever. But I was just like, you know what? If you're not talking, you still won't talk because I have information now. I know stuff now, and you're still not talking to me. Okay, fine. It's not like I haven't tried.
What do you, I'm just wondering, what is it that she just won't, I guess it's just really a sore spot for her. I don't know. What is it that she just, it's like you said, you're grown, you have information, you know. So what are we doing?
I
It's rhetorical. I'm
Right.
just
Nah,
thinking out
I mean,
loud.
because I've asked the same thing. Because I've asked that question to her. I'm like, it's not a secret anymore. Like everybody knows. Um, like I said, my I have cousins. Like her siblings, her brothers and sisters have a bunch of kids, and they're all older than me. So all my cousins are older than me. So they were all teenagers when I came into the picture. They all know. Everybody knows. It's not a secret.
It's not a
Okay,
secret.
now they just never said anything around me because they never knew whether I knew or not. So it wasn't until, like I said, these last couple of years when I start posting stuff on social media, now they're seeing it like, oh, he knows.
Mm-hmm.
And so now I'm telling her, like, okay, for whatever reason, the cat is out of the bag. I know, everybody knows, everybody
Yeah.
knows I know. What are you still holding on to? Like, you're the only one still living this lie, or still living under this
Yeah.
veil of secrecy or whatever. You're the only one, and she's still. I can't. It's like what they say, pulling chicken teeth. Chicken don't have no teeth. It's hard to do. So I just I gave up. It's not like I said again. It's not like I didn't try. It's not like I didn't put forth the effort
Man.
as the adult. Okay, we're all adults. We can talk. Da 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 da. You don't want to
Yeah.
talk about it? Fine. We have nothing else to talk about then.
Okay, I'm going to pivot back to your paternal side. So
Yes.
you've met them, you went to
hmm
the family reunion.
hmm
Tell me how like, how'd you feel?
It was a lot. Um, the fact that I never got to meet him. I'm leaning on the relationships that he had with all his family members. So I'm
Yeah,
talking to them
pictures, I
and
assume.
pictures. Yes, yes, yes. It's. I mean, it's a good thing, I guess, because like I said, I had resolved in my mind that I would never know anything, mother, father, siblings.
Yeah.
So to finally come through and get something out of the deal, it's a consolation. Because like I said, I figured prior to like social media and DNA, like I said, I was well into my 30s, and I just figured I'm never gonna know.
No. Did your family know about you? Did they know you existed?
I don't think he did. No.
Okay. So
Um,
they don't have any information about your mother then. They
nah.
don't
I've
know.
talked to a couple of them, and then we were trying to like piece it together, like where he was living at the time, and I'm like,
Hmm.
I have two half sisters from him. One a few years older than me, and then there's one 8 years younger than me. I haven't found the older sister, but me and the younger sister, we talk every couple of days. I go see her. She only lives like 45 minutes from me now, so we
Oh,
spend time
okay.
together as often as possible now. Um,
Oh, that's so, I love that for you.
yeah, yeah, but she again, she was younger, so she don't know anything that was
Oh,
happening,
yeah. Oh, yeah.
obviously. And even the older sister, her apparently my dad and her mom split up, and it must not have been a good breakup because the mom took her, moved away, and had no contact with him up until he died.
Mm.
So I'm still looking for the older sister, but from what I've heard from family, she was never really whatever the mom's attitude towards him was. She picked up on that, and she didn't want to have any dealings with him. So I'm sure she's probably not too excited about whether she got a brother from him because she didn't. From what I hear, she didn't even come. They sent an invitation for the funeral, but she didn't even come to the funeral.
Mm.
So I don't know if it's
Okay.
because she was too far away or because it had something to
Just
do with how she felt about
feeling.
him.
Yeah.
But
Um,
the family knew her mom. The family knows the younger mom, but nobody knows who he was
no.
with in between. So I don't think it was an actual relationship. And if the information that I have is correct, he was like 45 when I was born. My mom was 26. So there was a considerable age difference.
Oh,
So it doesn't seem like it may have just been a passing thing, just whatever.
yeah. Yeah. Okay. But I'm glad to know that everyone accepted you and they
Yeah. Yeah. There was no
no one
ill intent or
questioned.
malice. No, yeah, yeah. No, everybody. I mean, everyone understood the story. Like, and I said from the beginning, I really don't think he even knew I existed. So I don't
Wow.
think he had a say so in how any of that played out. I think whatever happened happened, and my biological mom, she just figured she was going to take care of it and do what she needed to do without his input. That's my
Now,
own fantasy that I put together because I don't know.
look, because that's what we do as adoptees until we know.
Yes,
We will
yes,
put
yes.
together a whole story. Listen, I know because I've done it.
Yes, yes, yes. What is it? The
um,
the ghost family.
yeah, yeah. So, were you born in Jamaica or no?
No, I was
Okay.
the story that I got from the agency is that my mom came from Jamaica. My mother and grandmother came from Jamaica. My grandmother was working as a nurse. My mother was in school to be a nurse. And according to the information, I've learned that quite often, sometimes this information from these agencies isn't always accurate information. So I'm just kind of going off of what's on paper. But according to what I
Mm-hmm.
got from them, my grandmother and mother were living here in the States. My mother got pregnant 3 years before me in 73, and she had a daughter that she sent back home to my great grandmother to raise in Jamaica. She lost the baby in 75, and then she had me in 76, and she gave me up for adoption at birth. And
Okay.
then the trail goes cold after that. So even
So,
the few people that I've had, like I've had some search angels look into it, And
Yeah.
because she's from Jamaica, her birth records are in Jamaica. So her birth and possibly death records aren't accessible, number one. And number two, that may not even be her actual
It may
name.
not even be right.
Right.
That's crazy. So, did I hear you say earlier that you have your own kids at this point?
I have a daughter. She's
Yeah.
22 now. Yes.
Okay. Have you shared this information with her? Like she knows your story?
She does. And we haven't had a real in-depth conversation, but like I tell her when I find out stuff, like I was adamant about her having her mother's last name when she was born. I never wanted to pass on this name that I have because I just don't feel like it's
Mm,
mine. So I made sure she had her mother's last name, and her mother's last name is Williams. So in me searching through the Jamaican side, my mother's side, through the DNA, my great grandparents, I believe, are Williams. So I thought it was real dope when I called my daughter to tell her like either way you are a Williams. I must have
either
knew this
way.
somehow, made it happen.
Either way.
Right. So like I throw stuff at her like that every now and then, so she knows where I'm at and what the process is going on. I mean, she doesn't know all of everything over the years, but like I think her mother told her about me being adopted at some point, but it wasn't like she said it out of malice, like just trying to throw shade some kind of way. So my daughter called me and was like, "Mommy said X, Y, and Z. Is that true?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And then we talked about it, and she was like, "Oh,
Yeah.
okay," and just kept it moving.
Yeah. And that's what yeah, my kids are like that.
Yeah.
Um, they're very interested in my story. Um, have you, did she get a chance to connect with any of your paternal side? Because technically those are her people.
Yeah, I mean, I've told her, but she hasn't met any of them or connected with them. Like I'm in Jersey, she's in North Carolina, so she's quite of a distance away. So like she's seen pictures of them and they've seen pictures of her, but she
Okay.
hasn't actually met anyone as of yet.
Okay. But she's aware. That's good.
Yes,
That's good.
yes.
So I want to know moving forward, because I know at this point it's kind of like your trail is like hit a dead end, it seems. I hope not, though. Have you given up? Or are you going to keep, especially now that you know this whole community of us is out here? Are you
Oh
going
yeah.
to keep searching? Like, what's your plan moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of like a wave where I'm real hot and heavy where nothing else matters and that's all I'm doing. And I get to a certain point where it's just like, okay, I'm like I said, when I run into those brick walls, I just kind of stop for a little while. And that's kind of where I've been here recently, just trying to get life together. But no, at this point, I would like to know at least, like I said, I found my father, but he was already passed. I would like to at least know if my mother's still alive or if she's passed on, and if I do have siblings on that side, because the family that I connected with through DNA, they were like two and three generations away. So they're
Okay.
like they were my age, but it's like our grandparents were siblings.
Right.
So it's a couple. So that's why it was
Couple
hard for them
generations.
to narrow down because I was asking them like because they're from Jamaica but they live in the States now. Matter of fact, in Jersey, where the same city where I'm from,
Mm-hmm.
and we were trying to compare the notes, and she was like, "Oh, like most of the grandparents siblings all had like 10 and 11 kids each."
Oof,
So narrowing down which one of
that's hard.
those, yeah, it's which one of those is my either grandmother or grandfather, and then which one of their kids is my mother. Like
Is the
it's a lot. Yeah.
gotcha. Gotcha. Well, in wrapping up here, I want you to speak to the adoptees who are like you and just feel like, okay, I don't know if I can find out any more information. What would you say to them?
Don't give up. I would say one thing, one of the biggest regrets that I have is waiting so long to ask questions, waiting so long
Mhm.
to open my mouth, waiting so long to let people know that I want to know. Because I think so many people now, even from the adopted family, some of the aunts and uncles that possibly might answer some questions that I have, they've passed on. I think my adopted dad, I think he probably would have told me more than she's been telling. It's just when I was younger, she ran everything. Whatever she said went. He went along with whatever she said, and I never thought to pull him to the side and try to ask him something and hope he would say something without her being in the room, because even outside of adoption, whenever I did that, his word didn't mean anything because she would come in and her word trumped over whatever he said, so it didn't even matter. So I don't know. In these later years, maybe he would have told me something, but I didn't think to act, because at that point, like I said, when he passed away, I wasn't dealing with him at all. And when I went back this last year, like I said, it was after he had passed away. So I don't know
Mm,
if he would have ever, because he and I, we never had like a man to man, father son. Okay, let's chop it up. Let's sit down and go fishing, have a beer. Like, nah, we never did none of that stuff. So there was never that opportunity for me to just come to him as an adult. And when I did, I came to both of them together. And he said nothing. It was her that was saying whatever she was saying that caused me to flip out and storm out the house.
mm.
And even after that happened, like, he never came to me and said, "Hey, I just want to talk to you man to man." He never did none of that. So he never did it for me, and I never reached back to him, and he passed away, and that was it.
And that was it. So if I had to sum it all up, y'all don't wait. Don't be afraid,
No.
because our stories, our curiosity is just that. And it's who we are, period. No matter
And
what.
like they say, curiosity killed the cat. It's a heavy burden to have weighing on your shoulder. And even up until as recent as last week, I was at work. I work in Penn Station, so I'm around strangers all day. And this
Right.
guy standing on my up on my shoulder, and he's like staring at me. And when I turned around, he was like, "Yo, bro, you got a twin somewhere, because I thought you were somebody else." Like, that happens to me so often. Like, okay, who is this person? Because I might actually be related to this person. So
Right.
either I got a real familiar face, or people really do know some people that are related to me. And coincidentally, I keep bumping into these people and they see it and recognize it. So it makes, like, stuff like that happens, and it just sends my mind into a whole spiral for the rest
I
of the
can
day.
imagine. I can only imagine. Yeah. So family, don't give up. Don't be afraid.
No.
Like the kids say, don't be scared.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because it is what it is. Don't let anybody tell you any different. Don't let anybody tell you, why are you asking? Why are you digging? Why do you want? Because it's who I am, and I have
Right,
a right
right.
to know.
And
That's
that's,
the
I mean, that's the analogy that I use, even like for the adopted family that has an issue with me bringing this stuff up now. It's like, okay, if your parents divorced, and most of them did, their parents divorced when they were younger, they weren't allowed to ask, "Why is daddy moving out the house?" Okay, "Why is daddy married to somebody else?" Why? That was a conversation that was allowed to be had with the kids involved. So it's the
so
same thing. Imagine your parents got
same
divorced
thing,
and you see daddy living somewhere else, but you can't never ask why.
right? Exactly, exactly. And I think what happens in that situation when you have non-adoptees, they can't understand. And I've said that many times. We are our own club. If
Yeah,
you don't
yeah,
stand in these shoes, you don't understand. It has nothing to do with how wonderful our lives were or not. But at the end of the day, the questions we have and how we feel, and um, you don't understand.
right.
So stop talking. Just
Yeah,
let me ask my questions. And if you don't know, you don't know. But
right,
don't offer up your advice because you don't understand.
right.
So I want to thank you so much for coming to tell your story and being on the podcast. And I hope that this is not like the end. I hope that you're able to come back and be like, guess what? I found somebody on my maternal side, because you got to come back if that happens for
Absolutely. Well,
sure.
I'm a fan. You know, I chime in on a podcast and I comment to make sure I'm watching. So
I
yes,
know you're
definitely, I'm here.
watching. I appreciate you so much, and everybody else that's listening and commenting. And y'all like, share, subscribe, do all those things. Well,
Yes, thank you.
until next time, family, thank you so much. Bye, family.
Peace.